everybody. My name is Brian, and this was a great idea. Welcome. Okay, so what we have here is the Synthstation from AKAI. I'm going to go over some stats for it real quick here. This debuted in 2012. I think it was at the 2012 Winter NAMM show. I had pre-ordered it in like February, and it was supposed to be out in March. I ended up waiting like 4 months to get this thing because it was such a hot item. It's basically a 49 key controller. It had 49 velocity sensitive keys. It had 9 sample pads that were also velocity sensitive, a pitch wheel and a mod wheel. And then it has your octave controls and selector buttons that worked with the Synthstation app. And it has transport controls and volume. It also has 2 1/4-inch stereo outs, a power, a USB, and an output for a foot switch for sustain pedals or whatever. And then it has a headphone jack. Now the nice thing is it's got this cradle here with a 30-pin connector. So you can plug your iPad into it, and that's how it gets its sound. It also charges your iPad as well. It was light, it was portable. As you can see, the size is pretty small. I was able to use this live for a good couple of years, and I had a foot locker that it fit in really comfortably, and I never had to really worry about it too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open up the Synthstation app, which I happen to download back again just so I can do the demonstration with it. The nice thing is this worked with everything, all the apps that I used live, because it operates on core Midi, of course. And these things were $249 new. I ended up buying a second one a couple of years later on eBay for like $50. And that's why I said this was a good idea. Well, I'll get to that bit in a moment, but let's go ahead and do a quick demonstration of the Synthstation app, and then I'll go through a couple of other apps here. So, all right, let's see here. You can go to the drum pads, but you select that. Let's do the polysynth. And then you would make any kind of oscillator adjustments or everything appear on the screen. You also have this XY, which is kind of cool because it bounces around here. And then you have the mono synth. And it was kind of cool because it gave you 2 of them. So you could set 2 separate programs and or go back to your polysynth and drums. So those were the main features of that. And it also had, you can do your edits and things like that. But what was really cool is you had songs in it. So you get the idea. Okay, so that was the Synthstation app. the things you could do with it. It was all right. I mean, I never really got into it all that much. I wasn't that big of a fan. I mean, I used it for a little while, but what I ended up using a lot of times was Animoog. Or Magellan. I also use the Korg IMS 20. So this leads me into the next bit here. I talked about the upside of using this thing, you know, for live purposes and the ability to charge your iPad, plus of the 1/4-inch outs, which made it really nice to connect up to my mixer. Now, the downside is, because it was made of plastic, it was kind of flimsy. I was always worried about breaking it when I was taking it out on the road. This one seems to be working right now, but my other one had issues with the 30-pin connector failing. It would continually disconnect and reconnect. So there were times you could hear it going bing, bing, bing through my performances, and sometimes it would cut out. It kind of sucked. Eventually, it stopped working altogether, so my original one doesn't really work that well for the iPad. Luckily, it has a USB port, so I can connect it up to, like, say, a laptop and use software synthesizers. Or if I use, like, a USB to Midi connector, I could probably use the camera connection kit or connect it up with another one of my tone modules, which I've not tried yet, so I'm not going to get rid of it yet. The other downside is, like I said, I'm not a real big fan of the app. It had potential, as did this thing, and it does not have any MIDI ports, so it doesn't even have a MIDI out, which would have been really nice, for, especially for $249. So where I said this was a good idea is AKAI was onto something with this thing, in that it had the drum pads and the connectivity with the cradle and all that stuff, and the 1/4-inch outs and everything like that. This was a really good idea, had a lot of potential. What they could have done is updated it with a Mark II version or whatever, because no sooner did this come out, Apple went and switched their 30-pin connector to a Lightning connector. Of course, that made this practically obsolete. Yeah, you could get the 30-pin to Lightning adapter and use it, but then when I started, what I really missed was having the ability to adjust parameters on the fly in performance. Knobs, faders, buttons, those would have been great. You know, I would have been able to reach up and tweak my filter cutoff or whatever, instead of reaching for the screen, which was, you know, when you're performing live on the fly, operating the screen can be precision, where when you're working on a live performance, you're trying to keep the energy up. It's like a bull in a china shop, basically. So what would have been great is if AKAI would have developed like a Mark II version of this, with more tactile controls on the surface, more buttons and knobs. It would have been great if they would have had a 61-key version, and if they would have developed their app a little bit more, and they would have updated the cradle to have a Lightning connector. Everything else about this, like I said, having the 1/4-inch outs and the ability to charge your iPad is nice, and the keys are nice, and the idea, the concept is great. But if they'd have updated it when they changed to the Lightning connector, and if they would have put more controls on it, I would still be using a Synthstation, or a version of the Synthstation. There you have it. That is the basis of the AKAI Synthstation 49 and why I thought it was a great idea at the time. As always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll be putting out more videos soon, and we'll see you next time.